think that there's a reason that architecture has been built as a major pillar of aesthetic development in society. Alongside things like art and sculpture and cinematography, it's because it can constantly evolve. It has people willing to critique themselves and look at their own identity and find things that are either useless or need to be expanded upon.
It's most important for architecture to bring people together. It's not all about just creating a beautiful space, but it's about creating something that people can experience and want to come back to, and bringing different types of people under one roof.
Everything is designed by the architect or the designer, everything. So the window, the exterior, the paint, everything is chosen, and it's a perfect work of art.
We're wanting to design and create for other people because architecture is for the people. And so whatever we do, whatever we create, that's impacting other people and changing things.
So, in the last 5 days or so, I sleep in about 2 to 3 hour increments, about once a day, sometimes twice a day if I can manage a nap. But today, for example, I've only gotten about 45 minutes of sleep, and the day before that I got about an hour and a half. I'm not really sure how I'm awake right now. I kind of figured that some kind of spirit of architecture or design just possesses you at some point. Keeps you going.
Studio culture is notoriously, in architecture, is notorious for the light tower that is our building, and where the light is on day and night 24/7 when we are on duty in studio. To me, studio is an environment that is sacred, where we leave everything behind of the everyday hustle and bustle, and we focus on the problem. We imagine things, we study precedents. It's any tool that they can use to visualize their idea and communicate it, and to figure it out, and then draw to drawings or models and then shape it.
I mean, I already have ideas of where people enter the site, like mainly through here or over here, something like that. So I think if I need to make a parking garage, that could help inform that.
Yes, because then they're going to ask you, well, you know the mechanics of the building, so how are the mechanics of getting into the car, getting out of the car? It should just be as efficient and flawless and seamless, you know? So don't forget about the layer of parking.
As soon as I decided that I wanted to study architecture, I of course looked up how intense the workload was. And I was very surprised to find out that it is considered the hardest college major. I've stuck with it because it's very rewarding at the end of the day to see the progress and the passion that you put forward into something manifested in a model or a drawing. And it's a very unique field in that way because you collaborate with students and faculty to make your project better, not looking for a final solution, but to instead create a dialogue around a certain point of conversation with your concepts. So Lubbock has a huge history with infrastructure. By infrastructure, I mean the megastructure, which is the physical representation of systems that we embed within the earth. So this could be a water tower, an electrical post, or various things like that. These infrastructures themselves are very separated from the way that we live day to day. And it provokes a lot of questions as to why we live this way. I mean, infrastructure provides the way that we get energy and water and resources. So if they provide so much of our modern lives, why are they so separated from ourselves?
What would this look like if I just took a chunk of infrastructure out of this? What would that spatially look like? Because if I am already in this space and suddenly all of this disappears and just beams like that, and I can look into another building here, but maybe there's another piece of metal that's reflecting my view here. So I think you setting up these kind of weird moments in elevation are very beautiful, but they're not doing anything more than being this structure, right? I want you to take away from these systems, not use all of these engineered precisions, take away what they're doing for you.
The review process is meant to be an infrastructure through which to expose students to an outside questions related to the project at hand.
It's often seen as this judgment day kind of thing, but without it, you would have been stuck in the same project that you had from the first week, you know, and it's getting also different eyes to look at your project. The review process can be very heartbreaking though, because it's also a reality check that whatever you've been working on for weeks, maybe it's not working, and you need to reevaluate the whole project.
I think you have a very strong proposal in the making, right? Which is, except for the line weights in your drawings, which are awful. Is that correct? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
These trees, boundaries that are not even physical boundaries, are thicker than, wait, you will get to that. This, as a summary.
In my experience, if you get a review that's just compliments, then honestly, not much is accomplished there. You need to be criticized.
So with this model, I'm basically trying to show how the building is more or less assembled on the skin, or the facade, as we call it. So kind of talking about how the structure relates to something that can be collaged on top of it, and how this becomes the appearance of the building, as opposed to something that's more of a form or an object.
Oh yeah, I hate models. I just hate models. That's all. You're doing that a lot better than I could. Drawing it like that, there's no way I can do that, especially.
I swear I'm gonna cut a finger off at the very end. If it's gonna be at any time, it's gonna be at the very end of my model making.
It's in the locker.
So I've been working on this model for probably 5 or 6 hours already, and you can kind of see the progress that's been done. The process is very tedious, but basically I laser cut the horizontal structure of this model, and I hand cut the little vertical members that you see running this way. And so most of what I'm doing right now is just attaching these things together with super glue. But it's super tedious because these pieces are really small and love to break.
I need one perspective in addition to the one that I've already completed. I need some kind of elevation collage to represent the materials that I'm going to propose for this recreation center. And I still need to finish my model, plus, if I have time, a section model to better illustrate the my overall concept of a dynamic change in depth and contrast. It's a lot. I'll be up pretty much the rest of the night, probably.
This is the first review I've ever seen where no one's here the night before. I think we're all about to get shafted. Pardon my French.
Although it's a final review, I don't think the design is final. It's still ongoing process. I think it's a unique form in our architecture school that we are having this kind of review processes. Obviously, students are stressed many times, but this is also kind of rigorous kind of our effort and kind of practice that we basically educate and then design our students into the architectural field.
I started to think about the media tech as our program as something that is constantly evolving. So if the process of media is evolving, why shouldn't our building? And so what I did was I considered the media tech as a system which can be abstracted. And the way that I did this is I looked at our programs and started to analyze how these things connect and relate to one another to where I could abstract these things into a network that could be applied to various different conditions. So I thought it might be nice to foremost challenge what a social infrastructure is for Lubbock by introducing a landscape expression that actually wraps around the site and creates a walkable city in some ways. And so that actually takes the form of this rising path here that goes around, as well as this ground level terrain right here. After considering that landscape expression, I started to make these vertical cores, which would become the support for my building and would actually become the connections between the programs themselves.
There are so many ideas in this presentation at all, extremely interesting. But then at the end it becomes overwhelming, and I think it fails to create links between the ideas and create a sort of rigor that would have emerged by potentially including less parameters and less intentions, but emphasizing and digging deeper into them.
I decided to give such as double height spaces to some of the more prominent experiences in here, such as the basketball court, which is seen in both ground floor and basement level. Also seen in this section right here, and then a double height space to the dance/yoga studio.
Megan, this is fantastic. I really, really like this project a lot. This section that you have here is really well done. It shows an awful lot of care, not only to kind of the tectonics and the formal things, but also the experience that people will have moving through this. So that said, all the praise said, a couple of critiques. You could have been, this pancake thing, we'll have to come up with a better name for it than the pancake, the disc. It doesn't need to sit like right on top of everything else, I think. I think you could afford to have a little bit more, it could float a little bit more, or it could separate from the kind of podium.
This was very much a trial and error kind of studio. Figuring out what works, what doesn't work, mainly what doesn't work. But it's been great. Major learning experience for me. So, but I'm ready to move on.
I feel like it was a pretty fair review. I mean, I feel like the reviewers may have gotten a bit stuck on specificity when I think that the scale of our third-year project invokes more general design. But I think it was good to hear. You always have to be optimistic whenever a review seems bad, but it's really because the reviewers care enough to tell you something. This semester's been pretty rough so far, not gonna lie. But I can't lie, it's instantly relieving to have that review out of the way, even if it didn't seem like it went that well. It's a lot in the past now, which is good. There's been a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of nights gone hungry because I've been too busy designing, but I think it was worth it to learn something.